Welcome to Civically Grown, where change makers share the roots of their leadership and the impact they're cultivating today. I'm your host, Dr. Shanice Prince. Today we have Tom Dursina, and he's a humanitarian program planner with the United Nations World Food Program in Afghanistan. He helps lead data-driven planning and resource allocation, making sure food assistance reaches people quickly and effectively during crises and recovery. Over the years, Tom has worked in conflict and transition zones around the world, helping teams turn strategy into action on the ground. His commitment to service began as a student in Paris, supporting outreach to Roma families, and later grew through hands-on humanitarian work in South Asia and Africa. Tom, thank you so much for being here today.
Shanice, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We realize it's just been about 10 years. We were grad students together at Harvard Kennedy
That's right.
School of Government. So it's great to reconnect. So I have a
Yeah.
question that I like to ask all my guests. What song lyric or quote captures how you've grown as a leader and why?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. Well, I've grown up influenced by a mother, and it has to be something that was deeply liked by my mother. So I'm going to say We Will Rock You by Queen. That very dynamic, full of energy, full of inspiration song that has echoed all the way to now in my life, and every time I hear about it, it brings to memory mom and childhood.
That is a wonderful song. It has so much energy, so much power, and it makes you feel good.
That's right. That's right. It's a very feel good song. Absolutely, never gets old.
So if we go back to your youth leadership experience, what are the roles or activities that shaped you the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, let me talk about this particular experience in Paris, right? So I was very young. I was 21, 22, just getting out of my mother's home for the first time and needed to a job, right? And I was in Paris. I was learning in a master's program, and I was looking left and right for possibilities. And what spoke to me was a role in a community, in a place, in a ghetto, where a doctor would go visit every week, and they needed somebody to support with translation and with logistics. And I spoke Romanian, and most of the people there also spoke Romanian. And because of that, they got me. And so I started a journey for about a year in which my vision of what it means to be human and what work means has changed forever. I remember this particular instance where I entered somebody's home, right? These were homes made of prefabricated materials in very muddy and precarious situations, but they had nevertheless some structure to them. And I remember entering one of these homes and being immediately impressed by the cleanliness of what I saw inside. So it was the mud outside and the poverty looking outside, and the cleanliness and the nittiness of what was inside. And it wasn't much. There may have been a bed. There may have been a bed for a little child because I was assisting a pediatrician. For the first time in my life, I understood there's a difference. There can be a difference between the inside and the outside, between the inside of somebody's home, between how people behave in their very intimate environment and how they behave in society outside. And that was my first humanitarian experience. That something can be so different once you get close to it, and so incredible. Just had a lifelong impact for me.
I love that observation. I've seen something similar. Like, for instance, it might be a neighborhood. It's people with lower incomes live there, but you go in and visit, you see the pride, and like you said, the
Exactly.
cleanliness, the personality, and so it just helps us not make assumptions about people just based upon
That's
where they
exactly
live.
right. That's exactly
So
right.
So when you think about your leadership, who do you feel or what do you feel mostly influenced you?
It's got to be my mother, right? She was a single mother who raised me from the age of 7. And she's made it all the way to me becoming 18. There were hard moments, there were easier moments, but I was a tough child, right? I was very naughty. I didn't want to listen. I smoked. I misbehaved. I did all of the above, and somehow she kept it all in control and always brought it back to what's right to do, what's right to do, what's morally correct, what's morally wrong, and sort of built in me the idea of doing the right thing, right? Always doing the right thing. So that has helped me, when I've come across situations that were morally doubtful, or when I've come across corruption, or when I've come across people who were not taking their work seriously. I've always felt it. I've always seen it. I've always spotted it. And that allowed me to just choose the right way. And sometimes it was difficult, right? Sometimes the right way was very difficult. But my mother did the right thing, right? Even though it was difficult. I remember when I was getting in trouble with bigger boys, she would take me by the hand and go to somebody's door, knock on the door and say, "Hey, your boy is 15 years old than mine, and this is not appropriate to slap him around like this. Please don't do that again, or otherwise we'll have to talk again." And I appreciated that support. Like it was the right thing. She could have ignored it. She's they're just toughen up. But she taught me that when something happens, we deal with it. We don't ignore it, right? We go to the cause of something, not try to manage our feelings about how something makes us feel. We just deal with what happens. And I think that's a powerful way to getting things done.
I think it is too, because sometimes people are thinking about something so long before they take action, but sometimes we definitely have to take action to get things done. And so when you think about those lessons from your mother, is there a vivid memory about leadership where you can think your mother had influence over that for you?
Well, let me echo what you've just said, right? Like these days, what you've just said regarding action, for me, action has become a mantra. So it's action first, feelings after. Whether it's the gym, whether it's going somewhere I don't want to go, whether it's speaking with somebody I don't want to speak with, it's action first in order to solve whatever needs to get solved, and then feeling. Because I know most of the time feeling will follow, right? So that doing the right thing has translated perhaps into an easier absorption of this idea of action first, no matter how you feel about it. And so these days I woke up at 5 o'clock, been doing so for a couple of years, and I find it very natural and 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 easy. But back to your question, I think, well, I gave you an example where she always stood up for me, right? She always stood up for me, whether it was going to somebody's door, or whether it was going to school when I was getting into trouble, or when I wouldn't understand something and wouldn't be given the necessary attention to get through that challenge. She always came with me. And so, that has echoed for me because parts of my team at various points in time in the past years, no less than a couple of months ago, have gotten in some sort of trouble. And elegantly, I tried to deal with what happened, right? To reach out to the person in question, say, there's been this conflict in the car. Here's what I understand. What do you think? Can we have a chat about it, please, for this kind of incident not to repeat anymore, right? And so it was, I believe, a way to both make right what had happened, support my team, and try to understand the other party as well involved, right? Because there's always things that are not said. So trying to deal with what happened in the best possible way.
I think that's very helpful. And it also sounds like it's made you a good team member, a good supervisor to be there for your team because there's Lots of people, if they mess up in their organization, they feel alone, they feel attacked. But thinking about how you're standing up for them, but you said in an eloquent way, making sure you're respecting all parties, but taking care of the issue. Also, I like to say when you said actions first, feelings second, the gym part really resonated with me. I don't know a
Right.
lot of people who feel like going to the gym, but if you say
That's
my
right.
action is I'm going, and that makes your rest of your day better, makes you have longevity in your life, feel better, and also helps you be a better leader because you have the energy and the focus to do things. So that's wonderful.
That's exactly right. I became vegan about 5 years ago. Being healthy is a major part of my identity. And so it started with being vegan, becoming vegan, and integrating exercise into my regimen. So it has become a habit now. And when I have those days when I don't want to go. If I'm not sick, that's the only day I will not go if I'm sick. If I have a cold, I will not go. I will wait for it to finish. But otherwise, I will do it and then see how I feel after.
Even on the weekends?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have
Wow.
1 day a week rest. I have 1 day a week rest, 6 days a week going to the gym. Absolutely. So, no question about that. Yes.
All right. When you think about your youth leadership, and I know it's like in your early 20s, is
Yeah.
there another vivid experience you just felt like you were making a difference at that moment as a young man?
I've been very blessed to be able to work in teams from a very young age. So, in my early 20s, I was given the opportunity to work in a team that assembled a refugee camp in Islamabad, Afghanistan, for about 3,600 families, Afghan families, who were spread out at the outskirts of Islamabad and who we gathered and brought into this legal place where people could have resided for a minimum of 10 years as agreed with the municipality. And so the undertaking involved bringing the people, right, which was quite an undertaking. And I was part of that because my being there, being the only foreigner, facilitated the smooth, you know, taking people into trucks, putting their belongings into, taking people into buses, putting their belongings into trucks, and transporting them first into tents, constructing boreholes with them, so water wells, and then building mud houses for these people and a market area. And I was involved in that experience for 6 months. And to this day, it's one of the most profound experiences I had because I understood there was nothing standing in between me and the other people. It was very raw. It was a raw experience. It was a very humbling experience. It was an experience that taught me challenges can come one after the other. And you just got to keep on solving them. And you got to pace yourself as you do that. So at the time I didn't know much about pacing, so I gave it my all. And I think it was successful undertaking. We received very good feedback, and the people were happy. Most importantly, but what stood out for me was creating a settlement, a place where people were not living before, a, a place deserted, and now a place that can support life with water, with a marketplace, with homes where people wanted to be and could be legally. And working that with the team of 30 people and multiple organizations, me being from the organization that led the project, was quite a remarkable experience
It sounds
and a humbling
remarkable
one.
and humbling. You said basically from nothing, bringing the core of life, water, shelter. I mean, how long does it even take to do that, to have people to be able to live there?
Well, believe it or not, people started to live there within 2 weeks of us starting to work because first they started living in tents. We organized tents for them, and every family had a tent pitched for them with our help. The people who needed help got help. The people who had able-bodied members could do it themselves. But within 2 weeks, everybody was shifted from the various places in Islamabad where people were staying illegally and were subject to being evicted to a place where they would be legally allowed to stay. So it took 2 weeks initially, and then up to 6 months to build the boreholes, to build the water wells, and to build the market and the mud houses.
That's amazing. How does the community begin? Or like the support from each other? How does that look? Because it is a totally different location than where they were living before.
So I think what matters most is listening and understanding what it is people want, and uh, listening why. People will understand what they will understand, like we all do, from the minimal information that we have. And so sometimes what people will understand will make them angry, or will lead them to not want to cooperate, or will make them oppose what you're trying to do. So I've learned to listen to people who come to you to speak about something. Take the time, right? Take that 1 minute, take that 2 minutes, take those 3 minutes to listen to what the person wants and respectfully engage that person. Even if it's a no, person's asking for monetary support for a family member who has a very rare disease, right? That's a real difficulty, a real vulnerability. But no support can be given. And so listening to that person and explaining that no support can be given because that's out of the scope and that's not possible. But if support becomes available, we will let them know. So I've learned that treating people, listening to people, showing kindness, and trying to solve other people's problems, that has carried with me these days in Afghanistan. That's all I do. I solve problems. Right? I look for problems and I solve problems. Right? So most people's reaction when they see a problem is, okay, let's try to avoid, or let's try to do something else. When I see a problem, I go to it. And that's probably because I've been immersed in so many situations, so many delicate humanitarian situations where I've wanted to stay, accept, and try to resolve the various issues that were happening.
That's really a great perspective. And even when I go back, when we talk about the resettlement camp, you're in your early 20s. So now all these lessons you've been carrying with you. So if you look at your job today or in the most recent years, how do you overcome challenges now?
Shanice, I'll give you one more example of early in my career, and then I'll connect it to the present. So it was happening during this refugee relocation and village building time. And I remember we were shifting people from these various places into the new location, into their new home. And I remember being very late and the bus was waiting. And I asked, why is the bus waiting? And they told me that there's one more woman who needs to finalize packing and come. And I went to see, and there was a single woman without any man around her. And it was an open sky, and she had her old house that didn't have a roof anymore. It was very dark, but yet the light came from the moon. And on the side, there was a cart that was tilted on the side. And as I looked at the cot, there was a blanket and two babies that were sleeping. And in that moment, it felt right being there. It felt like I was doing something that was meaningful for that person, for that family, helping them move to a better location. So I started helping them, and together with the team, we got her on the bus and went. But I distinctly remember that person because for me, the core motivation is always about trying to contribute minimally, even minimally, to somebody's life and make it better. And so these days, I'm head of program planning here in Afghanistan. And in program planning in WFP, what is at the core is people, right? It's people, and it's ensuring that people get their assistance timely. And to me, being in a department that deals with people as first, second, and third priority is the most excellent reward I could have asked for. So, extremely grateful for that opportunity to continue the journey of focusing on people and continuing all the way now to dealing with people, whether it's a better program, whether it's changing a program, whether it's adapting a program, you name it.
Mhm.
It's always focused on the people, and that excites me.
I just am envisioning what you're seeing on the side of the road and baby and wow, and how those images really stick with you. So I want to ask you, what's advice that you would give to young leaders when you think about all your experiences?
Uncertainty. Uncertainty comes up time and time again. It is part of the journey. We can ever achieve for it to be gone. We can ever wish for it to be gone. It will stay in our lives. Whether it's related to work, whether it's related to wanting something and not knowing whether it's going to come, whether it's awaiting those health results and not knowing whether they're going to comply what we want or not, whether it's no waiting for news from somebody who's not responding, that uncertainty is part of the journey. And so the only way to deal with it is to accept it. So that's the only situation, I think, where acting immediately is not the way to go. Accepting immediately and trying to understand rather than act. So uncertainty, I think it is very important to be aware that it will be there through and through. We cannot eliminate it. So the only way to deal with it is accepting it. That's element number one. Element number two, I was afraid of failure until I failed big time when I was young, when I was 27. And I understood with help from therapists, with help from the Kennedy School, where we enrolled leadership courses, and I learned to unpack it and look at it. I've learned that failure is also part of the journey. And failure simply means being on the outer part of your learning curve. So, what is important is not to fail so completely that you can't play the game anymore. But if something doesn't work out, accepting that and starting over, that's also part of the journey. And maybe third and last, patience and systematically dedicating yourself towards something you wish for, even if it's just an experiment, right? You want to conduct an experiment to see whether biology is something you're attracted by. Sign up for a course, do a class, do a 3 month class, and reassess how you feel about that. You're thinking coding sounds cool. Do coding, do a class in coding for 3 months. You want to become a statistician, but you don't know if it's worth it. Do a statistics course for 3 months. So do an experiment and patiently allow yourself the time to see, how do I feel about this? Rather than thinking in black and white. I either do this, or I either do this or this. Sometimes we can do multiple things, provided we're patient, we dedicate some time to it, and we listen to what the time investment is bringing us back.
I appreciate your pieces of advice so much for several reasons. First, I work with college students and they think they have to have their whole life figured out. So when you said the patience and trying new things, I think that gives people freedom. Now, the other two that you talked about, I think those are things that really make people feel unsettled, accepting the uncertainty. And so I think it makes a big difference because one time I remember specifically, I was waiting on test results. I had to wait 3 months. And I literally made myself sick from worry. And I should have just accepted the uncertainty, continue on with life because I feel like I didn't live my life to the fullest during that time. And then when you talked about failure, we all fail, but people are afraid of failing. And if people can take that advice, they can move through life with more fluidity and freedom. So thank you.
That's right. Absolutely, Shanice. Absolutely.
So this is the last question. If your leadership style was a tree, a plant, or a flower, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a great question. Nobody ever asked me that question. I love trees. I appreciate the structure, the trunk of a tree. I appreciate the foundations of a tree. And so I think that my leadership style is like a tree in which at the foundation you have a desire to impact people positively and make people's lives better, even in minimal ways. So people are the center of my preoccupations, first, second, third, in whatever mode. Second, I think it's important to listen to the people we're working for, to the people I'm working for, to the people I'm working with, whether colleagues of mine or whether bosses. Always be on the listening side, listen more, speak less, and try to understand what is being asked from you. So listening is a second pillar of my leadership, and that would be the trunk. And I would say that the upper part, and that changes all the time. That changes. It depends on the season. On the season, sometimes that will require speed. Sometimes that would require cajoling. Sometimes that will require convincing. So it's something that makes me unique and makes me adapting to each situation, right? Using whatever you see is in front of you, not coming with preset rules, preset thoughts, and rather trying to make something and answer to the exact problem that is in front of you. So I guess adaptation would be my third, Shanice.
I love that illustration with your leadership growth and style with a tree. Tom, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your advice and insight and perspective.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, Shanice. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Civically Grown. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay grounded and keep growing.